Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Lisa. Welcome to my Chelsea apartment. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Lisa Liu. I'm a PR and events consultant here in New York City, and we are currently in my studio apartment in Chelsea. Well, I was living in Greenpoint in Brooklyn about 13 years ago, and I had a roommate. We weren't necessarily jiving very well. So I had confided to a friend that I was looking to move out, and she serendipitously had met with her hairdresser, who happened to be looking for somebody to take over his lease for this rent-stabilized apartment in Chelsea, which is a unicorn of apartment hunting in New York. So I went to see it that night and agreed to take over right away. When I first moved into the apartment, it was really just a functional space for me, and I didn't really see it as somewhere I wanted to spend a lot of time. I moved in and it was very builder white. It was actually more like builder custard. It was this nasty kind of vanilla color everywhere. It was like that for quite a bit of time. I mean, I had some personal touches throughout the apartment, but really in 2020 during COVID and during lockdown was when I was sitting here staring at these ugly walls that I decided to really take matters into my own hands. And I really just spent about 2 or 3 weeks painting, putting up things, buying new furniture, and made it into the space it is today. This is my dining area slash workspace. I have a tiny kitchen, it being a studio apartment, and I actually love to cook, so it was really important to me to have more counter space, which is why I chose a counter height table in order to be able to kind of move between the kitchen and also do some prep over here. It also doubles as my workspace because otherwise I'd be laying in bed doing work or sitting on the couch, which is comfortable but not terribly productive. So this makes me feel like I have a specific space to go to get work done. The table is from CB2, now discontinued unfortunately. And the chairs are from Scandinavian design. And then I have this wall-mounted bar over here, which is one of my favorite pieces. As I mentioned, I think it's really important to take advantage of any wall space you have, just because the square footage is at such a premium in a studio apartment. So I found this on West Elm. I really wanted to, I like to have a little post-work cocktail sometimes. So this was a great solution to having a bar without taking up any extra floor space. As I mentioned, I really love to cook, so I have a bunch of cookbooks that are stored out of the way as well. This is a selection of some of my favorites. There's a vintage cocktail book, a book by Claire Saffitz on desserts, and then actually my friends Jimmy Lee and Yen Vo, who own Madame Vo in the East Village, just came out with a cookbook last year, so that holds the top spot at the moment. So I think one of the challenges with living in a studio is kind of carving out different zones because it's just one big room. So in order to kind of differentiate this as the dining area slash work zone, I wanted to paint it a different color just to make it feel like it has its own space. So now we're moving into the living room. Again, always looking to find storage solutions. So the coffee table is actually a vintage trunk. I inherited that from my sister actually. She was moving and didn't need it any longer. So the trunk is kind of my junk drawer. It holds, my tools, anything that I don't really want out, but that I could eventually need. There's like wrapping paper and random bits and bobs in there. So this is kind of the seating area of the living room. The couch I acquired last year, I want to say, from a vintage seller that I found on Instagram. Before that, I had a love seat that had arms, and it was very upright and not very comfortable, to be honest. So I was on the hunt for a love seat size sofa that didn't have arms and is also aesthetically pleasing. And you would be surprised that all those parameters in one piece of furniture are actually incredibly difficult to find. So I was scrolling Instagram and a post popped up from this seller I follow, and I fell in love with this couch immediately. I kind of thought about it for one day. I asked for the measurements and it would have fit the space perfectly. So I ended up pulling the trigger. The couch came from Miami, actually. And then we had to get it up 6 flights of stairs. It was a whole thing, but eventually she made it. She fits perfectly and I love her. The gallery wall is just pieces that I had curated over time. Some of them have meaning, some of them I just like how they look. I have one frame over here that includes some pictures from my travels in Spain. It was one of my favorite trips, so I like kind of remembering that. This image here, I don't remember the artist, I'm sorry, but it's an image of 3 women, which I kind of gravitated to because I have my mom and then I have one sister, and that was my family growing up. So I kind of thought this reminded me of us. This top piece is by a friend of my sister's, Karen Haas. And then there's this piece from this photographer, Tyler Mitchell, over here, which is just so joyful. As soon as anyone walks into the space, they can immediately tell that I live here. My personality is infused throughout this space, and so it feels welcoming and inviting is what I've heard. So I am a PR and events consultant, mostly within the fashion and luxury space. And so I end up working from home probably about 90% of the time. And so having a space that is calm and is really important to me for that reason. And also kind of having created different zones so that, you know, I don't feel like I'm working from my bedroom necessarily. That's been really important to kind of my mental space for working as well. I'd never seen myself living in New York, being from kind of a suburban area of Pennsylvania. But once I got here, I fell in love with it, so I can't imagine living anywhere else, really. Okay, so now we're moving into my bedroom. I wanted to put some artwork above the bed, but I didn't want it to be necessarily traditional artwork, I guess. So I found these skate decks. One is from Supreme, which is a brand that I love, a New York skate brand everyone knows and loves. And then the other one is of Notorious B.I.G., which is one of my favorite hip hop artists. Bed is a queen size bed. You know, I'd love to be able to fit a king size bed, but alas, here we are. This bed is from IKEA. Again, for me, it's always important to pick furniture that's off the ground, so no platform beds or anything like that. Just to have the option of storage space underneath if needed. The duvet cover is from West Elm. I really like linen bedding, so that's generally what I tend to use. The pillows are kind of sourced from various different places. I think a couple are from Anthropologie. So then kind of across from the bed, I don't know that this is very feng shui of me, but some of those principles have to go out the window when you live in a studio apartment. So I have this mirror that I sourced from Urban Outfitters. One thing I like to play around with in the apartment is like different shapes, kind of sculptural pieces. So that's why I really like having an arched mirror. And then there's this travertine side table here from Banana Republic that holds books that I've only half read. And then I have this vintage postmodern pink lamp that I also found from a seller on Instagram, which I really love. Honestly, I love shopping for vintage and like sourcing kind of loved items over, I do a mix, but I think, you know, it's a really great resource to be able to find pieces that are vintage or used because they're so much more unique. When you're walking into like these big box stores, sometimes it feels a little bit devoid of personality. And so you can really find pieces that no one else has. So you can see on the wall here, I've installed these 2 cabinets. Again, beating a dead horse, but always looking for storage solutions. So I bought these from IKEA and had the idea to install them on the wall and up near the ceiling so they're out of the way and they kind of just float into the wall. So most people don't even really notice them at first glance. And that holds all of my off-season wardrobe. I haven't really thought about installing more because honestly, it's just enough. And I think that's one of the lessons that you take from living in a studio apartment is kind of learning to really be intentional about what you bring to the apartment. So like, sure, could I use more storage? That just means I'm bringing more things into the apartment that I don't necessarily need. So you kind of learn to pare back. And then this is a dresser that, again, my sister handed down to me. She was moving, so she didn't need this piece any longer. So it's a mid-century dresser that I also really love. I hope she never asks for it back. And then in this corner is my dog Stella's bed. Stella's my best buddy. She's been here for most of the time that I've lived in New York, so she's turning 15 soon. So again, just kind of taking advantage of the wall space to create more storage and a little bit of a vignette opportunity here. I actually am really bad about collecting tchotchkes in that I have too many of them, so I'm always looking for different ways to display them. So I installed these 2 shelves from West Elm, and yeah, they hold a few of my favorite items. This is actually a portrait of another one of my favorite hip-hop artists, Cameron, and I found this artist, I think online. At the time he was 9 years old, I believe, and his name is Young Lennox, and he had drawn this picture of Cameron. This is like my favorite image of Cameron with the pink fur hoodie and the pink cell phone, so I had to have it. The one next to it is also by Young Lennox, I think, and it's of, again, Biggie. I think funnily, like, there was a delay with the shipping or something, so he just like threw in another piece, and so that's how I got that one. So this is one of my favorite personal photos, is actually of me as a child and my cousin. We're playing with each other, and so my sister actually had this blown up as a birthday gift for me one year, and I love it. I've had to become kind of a Jedi of small space storage tricks over time. One of the things that I suggest for people to remember is to really maximize use of like wall space. My favorite trick was installing these cabinets that I got from IKEA up by the ceiling on the wall, and I use that to store all of my off-season wardrobe. I used to do the thing where you like schlep your winter clothes to your parents' house and then vice versa when the seasons changed, and so I actually installed those cabinets in order to not have to do that, so I just switch out when it gets warmer or colder. The apartment is about 350 square feet in total. It's honestly just an estimate. I've never taken out a measuring tape to measure it. I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but the biggest challenge is definitely finding storage solutions. Okay, so now we're entering the kitchen, which is one of the most divisive topics on the internet. As you can see, the appliances are all kind of miniature. So while I have a 4-top stove, it's a little bit smaller than your regular range. Refrigerator is smaller than your average refrigerator, but it all works. I've had to be a little bit clever about storage here as well. So I really love Yamazaki Home, I believe it is, for all these kind of little storage solutions that they have. These are magnetic, so they stick to the side of the refrigerator, and then I can have all my spices and oils and whatnot handy when I am cooking. And then thankfully, these cabinets are pretty spacious, and then I have this shelving on the side as well where I can kind of keep some of my other glassware and dishware. It being a New York apartment with kind of limited storage, I do kind of take advantage of the space on top of the cabinets as well to store pots that I don't use as often, and there's a few hidden inside the oven as well. The kitchen cabinets were kind of that builder custard color that I talked about earlier. During COVID, I was just staring at the kitchen, which was really the bane of my existence of this apartment. So I one day just decided to kind of cover over all of that color. So I painted the cabinet doors with this green color from Backdrop. I also installed these knobs that I purchased from Restoration Hardware, I want to say. And then, so that provides a lot more kind of depth and character to the kitchen. And then I covered over the ugly yellow tile with subway tile, and then covered the counters, which were also yellow, with just peel and stick. Actually, I had done the peel and stick tile back in 2020. So pro tip, it doesn't last forever. So it had started to peel up and turn yellow over time. So I actually just redid the peel and stick 2 nights ago for this house tour. So you're welcome. So this is the entryway. Most people have like a mudroom where you can drop coats and things. So this is my mudroom. I put in these hooks on the wall to be able to put my bags, my hat, dog items. I'll throw my leash up there. And then I also installed this piece from Yamazaki as well, so I can throw my keys, my pepper spray for going out in New York at night, and then my sunglasses up there. And then the storage above the door was actually there when I moved in. So it's a really great area to keep cookbooks that I don't use quite as often, but I can pull them out when needed. Some additional dishware that I would use when I'm entertaining, but not necessarily things that you use on a daily basis. So I actually lucked out with a decent amount of closet space for New York City. So I have these 2 tall closets here, which look small, but since they're floor to ceiling, there's actually quite a bit of storage in there. So this is the bathroom. I actually added this molding to the door to add a little bit of interest and detail to that, and I painted it as well. The artwork above the door is by Sarah Baba, which is an artist that I really love. And I like that it's someone diving into a body of water, which feels kind of very appropriate for a bathroom. And this is the bathroom, which is one of my favorite spaces in the apartment that I kind of redid also during COVID. I added these, the tile was really dingy and no amount of cleaning could ever have cleaned it up before. So I just covered it with these vinyl decals that kind of mimic tiles as well. And then this other artwork, again, people in water. And then on the wall here is some additional storage, these 2 shelves, and they hold all of my beauty items and products, which I unfortunately am never able to edit down. So that's really useful for that. One thing about pre-war New York City apartments particularly is that the lighting fixtures can be really ugly. I think this was literally a bare bulb when I moved in. So I bought this light fixture from West Elm. I like that it's like a really sculptural piece with like the pleating, which kind of makes it feel like an art piece almost. Home for me means calmness and a sense of being able to let everything go when you walk in those doors. So especially living in New York City, there's a lot of outside noise, just a general kind of hecticness to the city. And so I really love that feeling of walking in and kind of shedding all of that and just feeling secure and safe and comfortable.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.